Judah. So all the northern lands of Judah. So everything in Judah was pretty much captured, besides the city of Jerusalem. Now, the city of Jerusalem was where King Hezekiah reigned, and that's where he noticed something was going on. So what he did is he built fortified cities. He noticed that the western wall wasn't built where it should have been built. Like it wasn't protected the way it should have been protected. So he actually destroyed some houses, and he used that material to build up the wall of the western gate of the city of Jerusalem. And the water supply for the city of Jerusalem was actually outside of the city walls. So what he did is he did some construction. He built a tunnel underneath the city so that it could all be rerouted, and so basically the city of Jerusalem didn't have to leave the city. They were fortified in, and that because he knew that the Assyrians were taking over. So he basically built a huge dome. It's not a dome, but to protect them. Yeah, fortress for. And it says, so ancient writings from King Sennacherib were found by archaeologists concerning King Hezekiah's reign in Judah. And it was after the Assyrian king had overtaken all the northern lands except for Jerusalem. And so these writings, this is really cool. It says, these writings read, because Hezekiah, king of Judah, would not submit to my yoke, I came up against him, and by force of arms and by the might of my power, I took 46 of his strong fenced cities. And Hezekiah the Judite I shut up in Jerusalem, his royal city, like a caged bird. So he took 46 of his strong fenced cities. That's a lot, okay? And Jerusalem was all that was left, and he knew that Jerusalem was kind of like a sacred city, and he knew that Hezekiah was scared. He was. So what he did in these next few verses is really bold. After Zechariah realized that the Assyrian king had taken so much of the land, he built that wall, and once the Assyrian kingdom reached as far as Jerusalem, their overtaking of Jerusalem seemed imminent. So basically, King Hezekiah saw what was happening, and he was, as any king would be for their kingdom, he was a little bit afraid. And the Assyrian king was really bold because he had taken all these cities. He was one of the strongest. They were the strongest empire at the time, and he was like, we're gonna take you over. So they get to the city, right? Once the Assyrian king reached as far, the commander of the army, which was, I forget his name, I think they called it the Rab in verse 17. And the king of Assyria sent the Tartan and the Rabsaris and the Rabshakeh, which the Rabshakeh was basically like the commander of the army at that time. And they sent to King Hezekiah with a great army. They went to Jerusalem. And this is verse 17 of chapter 18. And they went up to Jerusalem, and when they arrived, they came and stood by the canal of the upper pool, which is the highway on the fuller's field. So they stood by where King Hezekiah, basically by the entrance of the city. And when they called for the king, so basically the Assyrians are outside of the city at this point. They're outside of the city. He sends their commander, and he says, when they called for the king, there came out Elechem, son of Hilkiah, which was one of the elected officials of King Hezekiah at that time. He over the king's household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joanna. So he sent out these three guys out to talk to the commander of the Assyrian army. And when they told, when Rabshakeh, so the commander of the Assyrian army, told them, say to Hezekiah, thus says the great king of Assyria, what justifieth this confidence of yours? You say they are empty words. There is counsel and strength on war. Now on whom do you rely that you rebel against me? So one thing I was reading, and I saw, it doesn't, I think it's in Chronicles it talks about it, but it talks about how those officials, there was the kingdom of Israel and those kingdoms that were overtaken by the Assyrians. They had actually formed an alliance with the Babylonians and with the Egyptians. So to protect them, instead of trusting in the Lord, which they should have done, they put their trust in these armies, these foreign armies, and obviously those foreign armies didn't help them because they were captured. And the king knew that, and he basically scared them by saying that. He said, your buddy nations here put their trust in these other nations, and where were they when we attacked them? They were not there. So he's scaring him at this point. He said, behold, you are relying on Egypt, that a broken reed of staff, if a man so leans on it, it will pierce his hand. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who trust and rely on him. So I'm in verse 20.